The Trump administration is moving ahead with plans to reopen Alcatraz as a federal prison, an idea some critics have dismissed as impossible, in part because of how expensive it would be to repair and retrofit as a complex that, frankly, was so run down that they closed it, and so expensive to operate. 60 years ago, they closed its doors. My next guest is among those critics, Democratic Congresswoman and Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. Alcatraz is part of her district in San Francisco. It's so good to see you. And before we even get to the politics of this, Madam Speaker, so what's wrong with using a site that already exists?
What's wrong with using a site that 60 years ago was shut down because it was too expensive to run as a prison, that since then has had to meet environmental standards to be part of the National Park Service, the GG Golden Gate National Recreation Area. What's wrong with it is it's costing a fortune to bring it back to being a real prison. Right now it's a tourist attraction, which has been a venue for art and community events, something that this administration doesn't appreciate, obviously, and of course the environmental concerns of no concern of theirs. But the fact is, I've said this is not only stupid, with stiff competition, one of the stupidest initiative put forth by this administration. It cost a fortune at the same time as they're taking food out of the mouths of babies, at the same time they're kicking millions of people out of health care, on the same day we're voting to do tragic things in terms of our relationships with other countries and stopping disease from coming into our own country, that they would be doing this. They just added a few $1 trillion to the national debt to give a tax cut to the richest people in America. And now they're going to, and they did this taking money out of health care and food and nutrition and all the rest of that. And now they're going to spend money on this foolish idea. It will never happen.
Well, we do know, and you know this, the president wants to look tough on crime. And frankly, that message has been effective with his base. But other than that, why do you think the administration wants to do this?
Well, first of all, let's talk about being tough on crime. Being tough on crime is not turning Alcatraz, which won't even be a prison for a long time to come. I don't think it'll ever happen. If you want to be tough on crime, let's talk about community safety. Let's talk about how we can have more support for cities and states so that they can have. It isn't about cutting off the funding for fentanyl and what we're trying to do in that regard. Do not consider changing Alcatraz into a prison as being tough on crime, being tough on crime. So it's just a waste. It's silly. It's foolish. And it happens in the context of cruelty, which they're doing with taking food, hundreds of billions of dollars, because they have to be fiscally sound as they add trillions of dollars to give tax cuts to the rich. This is not about being tough on crime. It's being frivolous about money and silly about the choices they have made.
Could they do it legally? Is there anything you, as a member of Congress, could do about it? Is there anything Governor Newsom could do about it?
It's not a question of can they do it legally. It will require action by the Congress of the United States for this to happen. I know that my colleagues here have abdicated the power of the purse to the president, but this still will require legislation for them to do, both in the spending, the funding, but also in the environmental laws that they must follow in whatever they do. So we will be legislating on, so see where these members will go, litigating in the courts, and also communicating to the American people. Now, there's so much fuss about Alcatraz. I wish there was much fuss about Alcatraz among some of us here as there is about food out of the mouths of babies. I'm here for the children, and this is not for the children. This is an ego thing. I think the president saw a movie 50 years ago or something, and he's decided on the strength of that intellectual resource that he will do this. But do not be misled to think that this is tough on crime.
I mentioned earlier that the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is headed there today. She's been in the middle of this controversy over Jeffrey Epstein. Look, you know well, too well, the power of conspiracy theories. Your husband was attacked by a man who'd fallen for them.
That's right.
Is it your sense there's anything the president can do now to get his supporters to move off of the Epstein issue? Should he? Where do you land on this?
You know, again, this is a distraction. This is a distraction. We have major issues right here with things we're voting on today in the Congress. Again, in terms of the rescission that the president and the Senate have sent back over us to cut all of these resources out of helping poor people throughout the world, to be America play its leadership role in soft power to keep us safe and to keep us healthy, so that viruses know no boundary. And instead, we're talking about this thing, and his own base has its own views of what the president should do. I'll leave it up to them to talk it out. But again, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein or Alcatraz, it's all off the subject of what they're doing with this budget that is harmful to the kitchen table, meeting the kitchen table needs of the American people.
I want to make sure I understand what you mean when you say distraction. Do you think that Pam Bondi going to Alcatraz is meant potentially as a distraction from Epstein, which has not gone over well at all with the president's base?
No, I think they're both distractions. I think they're both. I don't think she's going to Alcatraz. I think she's planned to do that. But I think that they're both off the subject of what is happening, changing the character and the culture of America by undermining, by placing huge trillions of dollars of national debt on for future generations to carry forward at the expense of the health, nutrition, education of the American people. I'll just make this further point. Nothing brings more money to the Treasury than the education of the American people, whether it's early childhood, K through 12, higher education, post-grad, lifetime learning for our workers. Nothing brings more money. And yet they and their friends in the court are undermining public education in our country. So we're talking about judgment. We're talking about no vision, no values. And again, with some of the things they're doing, it's not the price only, it's the money. It's the money that they're using for frivolous ideas like the Alcatraz idea. And again, it's important. It's important to me. It's in my district. But it's not urgent the way it is urgent for us to cut get rid of the cuts that they have made in our budget that meet the needs of the American people.
Let me ask you about another dramatic moment, frankly, on the Hill today. And you've been on the Hill, for, I think, 38 years. So I want to ask you what we saw on the Senate side. Do you think Democrats who walked out over this nomination of Emil Bovee to a lifetime judicial position, was that an effective tactic? Does it make them look petulant? What do you make of what we saw today as a demonstration against what they felt was not being heard on the issue of Emil Bovee?
I congratulate them for doing it. I'm proud of them for doing it, because public sentiment is important in all things, as Lincoln has told us. But for public sentiment to prevail, people have to know. And this dramatic move on the part of the Senate Democrats is very important. With all the respect in the world for some of the Republican senators there, how they could associate themselves with such a ridiculous choice for a lifelong Court of Appeals appointment is really, really hard to understand, except maybe a cowardice and fear of the President of the United States. This man should not be. Look, 900 former members of the people at the Justice Department came out against this appointment. This is as low as you can get. But they seem to have been having a limbo contest with themselves to see how low they can go in terms of the lack of quality of the candidates that they put forth.